what we're going to be doing today is we're going to solve quadratic equations. And what we're looking for is to find the x-intercepts, or the zeros, as you may call it. So here are the numbers that we're actually solving for. We're solving for the x-intercepts when we solve quadratic equations. And we can solve quadratic equations in multiple different ways. One of them is factoring. The next one is the quadratic formula. And the third one is complete the square and solve. So we will be doing all three methods today. If you haven't heard of the quadratic formula before, it is right there in this cloud. It is x equals negative b plus minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. And to use this formula to solve for the x-intercepts, it must be in standard form. Standard form is ax to the power of 2 minus bx plus c equals 0. So let's get started. So solving by factoring. So if you are new to factoring, I'm going to show you how to factor this equation, and then we're going to get our x-intercepts really easily. Factoring is probably the quickest way to solve a quadratic equation. So x and x would equal x squared. X times x would be x squared. And then we have to do two numbers that add to 6 and multiply to 5. I'm thinking 5 and 1, and because this is positive and this is positive, these two integers must be positive as well. So, plus 5 and plus 1. Let's factor out. It's x squared plus x plus 5x plus 5. And we're left with x squared plus 6x plus 5, which, if you didn't know it, that was our original equation. But we're not completely done yet because we have it factored, but it's looking for the x-intercepts and what the answers are. So we just put this factor x equals negative 5. We move here. I'll show you in a different way. X plus 5 equals 0. X plus 1 equals 0. So x would be negative 5, and x would also be negative 1, and that's our answer. And now we're off to x squared minus 10x plus 25, and we're going to factor this expression. We need two numbers that add to negative 10 and multiply to 25. I'm thinking negative 5 and negative 5. And we're not done yet. Minus 5 equals 0 equals 5. And it's order of 2. So that means if we were to have this, it's a quadratic equation, which means it would bounce. Hold on, I'll show you up here. Which means it bounces off the x-axis. That's what order of 2 means. So what I did was I looked for numbers that add to 8 and multiply to 15. What I came up with was 5 and 3, and that's inputted into our factored expression right there. And the x-intercepts, or the zeros that we have looked for, is -5 and -3. And now we're off to t squared minus 4t minus 32. What I did was I looked for numbers that add to -4 and numbers that multiply to -32. I know that it is a negative. It's a negative and a positive number because our product is -32. You get a negative number when you multiply a positive and a negative number together. And to get -4 would also be to add a negative integer plus a positive integer. It can also work as -2 and -2, but in this case it was -8 and +4. So what we found was -8 and +4 were our factors. So t would equal 8, or t equals -4. And those are our x-intercepts that we have been solving for. Now we're on to question 5. I'm looking for two numbers that add. Before we do this, looks like it's gonna have to be doing some rearranging. 2z to the power of 2 minus 5z minus 3 equals 0. And let's see if we can factor this expression. I need numbers that add to -5 and multiply to -3. So I'm thinking it's a positive and a negative number because our product is negative. A positive and a negative number multiplied together equal a negative number. And we're also looking for a positive and negative number because we're at -5. So it could be a positive number added to a negative number, which gets our answer right there. So the two numbers that I am looking for is, I believe, if we factor this expression, 2z and z, and then I'm thinking -3 and +1. So let's FIFO out using our colors. Firsts, last, or outsides, insides, and lats. And that's how we FOIL out. So 2z times z is 2z squared. 2z times -3z is -6z. And then 1 times z is positive z. And positive 1 times -3 is -3. And we're left with 2z squared minus 5z minus 3. And as you can see, that is our original equation up here, or the one that we rearranged. and that's solving quadratic equations by factoring. I did my best to try and explain how to factor as well as getting those answers that we need. And I circled them all here. I'll give you a moment to write them down or to catch up, and then we're going to move on to solve by factoring. Solving by the quadratic formula. Okay, so solving by the quadratic formula, there are two ways you can do this. You can calculate the discriminant d first, and then substitute the a, b, c, and discriminant into the quadratic formula. The discriminant, if you don't know what that means, it's everything under the square root. And I'll show you, it's everything under this sign. B squared minus 4ac. That's what you're calculating for the discriminant. Or you can calculate as you go by simplifying and substituting ABC into the quadratic formula. So that when you don't use the discriminant and you don't calculate it beforehand, but you just you calculate it as you go and you sub in and then you simplify and that type of stuff. So those are the two ways. I'll be showing you both, and hopefully there are no mistakes. Okay, so what we have here is x squared minus 14x plus 33. So we're going to do A, B, and C. And the quadratic formula is x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So that's the quadratic formula that we're going to use to solve this quadratic equation. So let's sub in. It's negative 14. I used this b up here, plus or minus negative 14 squared minus 4. A is 1 and c is 33. All over 2a, and a is 1. As you can see here, I calculated these substitutions into the quadratic formula here. I put b where b was supposed to go. I put a and c where a and c were supposed to go. And I put a where a was supposed to go. So you just make sure that you're correctly substituting the values of a, b, and c into the formula correctly. Okay, so now we're going to simplify. These two negatives cancel out. Two negatives equal a positive integer, plus or minus their square root of 64. Actually, let's do that in more than one step. So, get out our calculators. Negative 14, that's 196, minus 132, all over 2. I'm doing 196 minus 132 equals 64 over 2. So 62, the square root of 62 is 8. 14 plus 8 divided by 2 equals 11, or x equals 14 minus 8 divided by 2, 3. And those are our final answers towards our x-intercepts. By solving this quadratic equation using the formula, we got x equals 11 or x equals 3. So let's move on to question number 7. So this one, let's calculate the discriminant first. So the discriminant Okay, so we're just going to plug this into our calculator, and you should get the answer of 25. And then we're going to sub the discriminant and our a, b, and c into our quadratic formula. X equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. So it's going to be negative 13 plus or minus the square root of 25 all over 12. And our answers are 3 over 2, or x equals 2 over 3. Those are exact numbers because they're fractions. But you can also use decimals if that is what your teacher allows or wishes you to do. Looks like we're going to need to do a bit of simplifying and rearranging in order to get this expression in standard form. Sorry about the vacuum noises. Okay, so 3y minus y squared, 3 minus 1 equals 2y squared, 12y minus 5y, 12 minus 5 equals 7y, and 3, there's no other number here that doesn't have a variable that can go with 3, so it's just positive 3 when you bring it down. So now our equation is in standard form, and what we're going to do is use the formula to solve this quadratic expression or equation. So we have our ABC. Our quadratic formula is x squared minus b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. Then we have x, and we can sub everything in. It's going to be negative 7 plus or minus the square root of 7 squared minus 4. And we have a 2 for a and a 3 for c. All over 2 multiplied by 2. So it's negative 7 plus or minus the square root 49 minus 6. So minus 24. 6 times 4 is 24. All over 4. Negative 7 plus or minus the square root of 25 over 4, which would be negative 7 plus or minus 5 over 4. And our answers would be x equals negative a half or x equals negative 3. Let me just go ahead and double check those. Negative 7 plus 5 divided by 4. Yep, negative a half. Negative 7 minus 5 divided by 4 would be negative 3. So our answers are correct. Now we're going to be solving by completing the square. So we have 2x squared minus 4x minus 5. We're going to complete the square and then we're going to solve. If you are unaware of how to complete the square, I'll do my best to explain it in this video, but I'll also be posting another video that's just on completing the square. So if you're a little confused, don't be afraid, another video is coming soon. Okay, so the coefficient of 2 needs to leave, so we're gonna divide everything by 2. We're gonna stop there, we're gonna bring that down, x. We're gonna cut this middle term in half, which would be minus 1. And then we're going to square the term that we just cut in half, and we're going to put them up there. So negative 1 times negative 1 is positive 1, and then we're also going to do a negative 1. So we're going to add that in, and we're going to take it right back out. Minus 5 equals 0. And then we take this term and we bring it out for it to join the negative 5. But before it comes out of the brackets, it needs to be multiplied by 2. So it's negative 2 minus 5 equals 0. And our final expression within completing the square would be minus 7. So we've completed the square so far. And I'm sorry, I'll try my best to continue to explain completing the square to you using the right terminology. But for now, this is all we've got. So we've completed the square, and now we need to solve. So 2x minus 1 equals 7. Sorry, that's squared. We're going to divide by 2. So x minus 1 brackets squared equals 7 over 2. And the next step that we need to do is square root to get rid of that squared symbol right here. And now all we're left with is to get rid of this number right there and move it to the other side. So our answers are and those are our answers. So that was completing the square and solving, and this is our answers that we got as well. Okay, now we're on to the next question. So we need to get rid of this coefficient right here. So we're gonna factor everything out. We're gonna factor a 4 out of the expression. And we're gonna leave that out. You leave this term, you move it over there. Before we figure out these two terms, x minus 3 over 2 squared. We take this term, square it, negative, negative, positive. So we're going to take this term out, and it has to be multiplied by a 4, which is okay. It would just cancel out these two numbers. So it would be negative 9 minus 5 equals 0. 4 brackets x minus 3 over 2 squared minus 14. Yep. Okay, so we've completed the square, and now it's time to solve. So what I've done here is I've gotten rid of this square root symbol I got rid of the squared symbol by square rooting both terms, or both sides. And now we're left with x minus 3 over 2 equals positive negative 14 divided by 4. So it's x equals 3 over 2 plus or minus the square root of 14 over 4. And this 4, under the square root of 4 is 2. So and that's our final answer. This would be exact numbers. Exact numbers. If your teacher is asking for exact numbers, you leave it in this expression. But if not, you can use decimals. Just input it into your calculator and you should get the right answer. 3.37 or x equals negative 0.37. So those are the x-intercepts that we've been looking for. I believe this is the last question within completing the square. So we're going to factor out of a 2. Okay. So we're going to take this term out, and it has to be multiplied by 2. So it would be 2 over 4 plus, I'm going to go with 12 over 4, 0. And now we've completed the square, and now we need to solve it. So we're going to move this term over here, we're going to divide it by 2, we're going to square root both sides, we're going to move this term over to the other side. That's how you solve it. So 2x plus half, move it to the other side, 10 over 4, divide by 2, or multiply by a half. Ten over 8. Oh, I'm really sorry. I forgot, when removing this term, thank God I caught my mistake, it's negative 10 over 4 times half, negative 10 over 8 minus. Sorry about that, I really do apologize, but mistakes are allowed in math, and it's okay if you make mistakes or if you're just still learning, as long as you try your best and catch your mistakes or learn from them. I think it's okay. Okay, now x plus half squared. So our final answer is negative 1 plus I over the root of 5 over 2. X equals negative 1 minus I square root of 5 over 2. That's our final answer for that question there. So I is an imaginary number. It's the square root of 1. I equals square root of negative 1. So it's just an imaginary number. It's complex numbers, and we'll probably learn more about this as I post more videos. But I just factor out a negative 1, and factoring out a negative 1 under the square root equals I. So that's how I got I the square root of 5. That's how I got that answer right there. So thank you for watching my video, and please leave a like or subscribe if you would like. Thank you very much.